Thank you for tuning our Tech Talk today. My name is Juan Bustos, and also presenting today as part of our Tech Talk will be my good friend Bob Strahan. In today's talk, we're going to cover the topic how you can enhance customer experiences by using intelligent search. We'll start off by clarifying the idea of an omnichannel customer experience. We will talk about what customers expect pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, and the technology that's driving those expectations. Then, we'll look at the challenges that companies face to meet those expectations and how intelligent search can help. We will run into a demo, and to round out the talk, we will have a question and answer session. So, without further ado, let's jump in. Let's start with this quote from the former CEO of Zappos. It directly states that customer service should be a more holistic approach to how organizations do business. Bygone thinking of customer service is outdated. It can't be just a department or just a line item in your operations P&L. The convergence of marketing and technology in today's marketplace means that brands are no longer built through advertising, but through experiences. The channels on which your customer can interact and communicate with your brand have exploded in recent times, and they continue to grow. Whether it's a brick and mortar, social, mobile, or something else, the Always Connector customer has many avenues where they can experience your brand. And all of these options are creating certain expectations. Anytime, whether it's early in the morning or late at night, each customer is different, and they all lead busy lives. They expect flexibility when interacting with your brand and prefer to choose a time that works for them. Anywhere. Technology has also created an expectation that customers can choose their mode of communication. If I'm in front of a computer, perhaps the web is my go-to port of the call information. If I'm on the move, maybe I prefer mobile. Automated. Last but not least, I expect a frictionless interaction. If I'm on the web and I can't find information I'm looking for, then perhaps I'd like a conversational chatbot to help guide me in the right direction. One that's intelligent enough to interpret my questions accurately so I don't have to connect with a call center agent. For the first time, advances in automation, artificial intelligence, and natural language processing make it possible to design enhanced digital experiences, where information can be purposeful, simple, and natural. Customer conversations with organizations can resemble conversations with employees in person. It provides informal, engaging experiences that mirror everyday language. Critical elements include natural language processing that can understand natural sentence structures and read or parse human text. Machine learning that helps to train models that will learn how to provide better answers by analyzing responses. Dynamic text-to-speech is part of this family and converts written text to speech, supporting multiple languages. Think smart devices like Alexa. Intent recognition that enables the application to better understand what the user is requesting. Entity recognition that helps classifying text and relating it to categories. For example, April 19 is a date. And finally, extensible APIs that provide the ability to integrate all these capabilities into software as a service solutions and applications that customers can interact with. We are seeing that companies across many different industries have been experimenting in this space, and the pandemic has accelerated this experimentation. Now, let's talk about how these affect different verticals or spaces. For example, in the financial services space, whether it's banking institutions, capital markets, insurance claims, or payments, financial services companies are adjusting, and consumers have an expectations for modern tools to manage their finances. Consumers' use of mobile and online banking has skyrocketed during the coronavirus pandemic, as banks have limited in-person visits to appointments or drive-through service, or even completely closed branches. As of April 2020, 35% of the consumers surveyed by J.D. Power were using mobile banking apps. This represents an increase of usage from over before the pandemic. For healthcare and life sciences, healthcare providers and payers are also seeing demand for digital tools as patients aim to tailor their health needs around their busy schedules. Going beyond email and text, secure two-way messaging that allows patients to communicate with their care team in real time. Nurses can help patients with challenges they encounter with medications. Think about managing side effects, interpreting symptoms, or lab results, all of which can improve adherence. For example, by recognizing one patient was having trouble finding the alcohol pads they needed for their injection medication because of high demand, a nurse quickly added a box to their order. While such a small task, it provided this patient much needed peace of mind amid the disruption. In March, the secure messaging platform saw a nearly 30% increase in encounter volume as care teams help patients manage challenges like this. The result? Better health outcomes and lower costs, a win-win for all. Last but not least is the retail industry. E-commerce has exploded since the pandemic hit last year, but that doesn't mean that brick-and-mortar retail is going to disappear. Retail brands will be under more pressure to reduce friction between digital and physical shopping experiences. For example, 79% of consumers say contactless pickup is very important for them. However, research shows that shoppers find pickup experiences lacking. Shoppers say ease of completing an order is important. However, they encounter significant friction getting there both online and in store. And 81% of shoppers rate 3 stars or lower when asked about availability and preferred pickup slots, dates, and times. Now, consumers have even larger appetite for self-service, with many not only expecting to accomplish tasks and get answers on their own, they actually prefer to self-serve rather than speak with a company representative. Some organizations are innovating and delivering flexibility that customers expect when it comes to customer service and communication with their brand. We have the example of the Rhode Island Department of Labor and Training. During the pandemic, they rapidly deployed cloud-based and machine learning-powered solutions from AWS to help state residents manage their unemployment claims via a website chatbot. We will share more about this a little bit later in this Tech Talk. For many other organizations, they are challenged to provide these experiences for other customers. One crucial element of this is because they cannot unlock the data that's needed to meaningfully impact the customer experience. Data, information, and ultimately the answers that customers are searching for is scattered across the enterprise, making it hard to expose to customers when and where they need it. However, by using Amazon Kendra, an intelligent search service, organizations can begin to create better omnichannel customer experiences. So, for building better experiences with intelligent search, we can think about the life cycle of an Amazon Kendra workload. Essentially, we have 3 stages: the data ingestion, the optimization, and how you will deploy this solution. For data ingestion, you will have your data sources. Data sources are the locations where your data is. We provide a set of native data source options, and also we have more than 50 partner connectors. Then, after you identify where your data is, you can perform data enrichment. This will allow you to get that context for your documents before ingesting them into Amazon Kendra. Once you have your data inside your Kendra index, you can start working on how to improve the accuracy of your results. Essentially, we have 3 processes that can help you with this task. We have incremental learning that will allow you to receive feedback from your users, increasing the relevance of the documents over time. Also, you have relevance tuning that will allow you to prioritize certain attributes over others. And then you have custom synonyms that will allow you to find similar terms. So after the optimization stage, we're going to talk about how we're going to deploy it. And this is where you will define the experience your end users will have. It's not the same real estate, for example, that you will have on a website search where you can deploy all these filters on screen to the real estate available on a chatbot where you need to have more precise answers. It's not the same these scenarios with, for example, a contact center agent where you may have to provide them hints to improve the customer interaction, or even the space available on a software as a service application. Bottom line, with intelligent search from Amazon Kendra, you can get meaningful data into a unified index, ensure it's relevant, and get it to places where your customers are interacting. Now I will hand it over to Bob, who will take us through some examples.
So let's cover some of the topics that we'll be going through in our demonstration today. We're going to start by taking a quick look at how I've set up the index for Kendra. We'll be using this index throughout the demonstration. And we'll talk briefly about the Query API for Kendra. Fundamentally, Kendra exposes the intelligent search service through an API that's exercised by all of the different channels that we're going to look at. So we'll take a quick look at the API just using the Amazon command line. We'll not go deep on it, but just so you get a sense for what's going on behind the scenes when we look at some of these other channels. We'll talk briefly about search web pages. I can show you some examples of a web page that allows you to do a search from within the Kendra console, and also some publicly available web pages that are using Kendra today. We're going to pivot a little bit then and talk about Amazon Lex. It's our chatbot service, and chatbots actually make a really good conduit to Kendra for putting Kendra search capabilities onto different channels. Lex supports a number of different channels out of the box, and I'll go through those and show you how they work. We're going to be using today an open source project that uses Amazon Lex behind the scenes. It's called the Q&A bot project, specifically designed to provide an FAQ or an informational bot, and it's using Kendra behind the scenes. So we'll show you briefly how that works, and then we'll give you examples of some of the different channels that are enabled by installing the Q&A bot with Amazon Lex and using that as a conduit to the Kendra search queries. So we'll start by taking a look at our Kendra index. So here I am in the AWS Management Console. I'm going to click on Amazon Kendra here to visit the Kendra console page. And you can see immediately that I have one index I created previously. This index is called the Q&A bot demo because later on I'm going to show you how to interact with the index using the Q&A bot. But let's click on the index and we'll take another look at some of the data sources that are associated with the index. So you can see here I have two data sources. There's one called the Q&A bot Kendra Crawler. I'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about the Q&A bot, but for now it's enough to know that this is a data source that contains the HTML content of web pages that have been scraped for us by the Q&A bot. We also have an index here which is of type S3, so I have an S3 bucket with some PDF documents that I loaded up before just for the purposes of this demo. So they're indexed here in our Q&A bot demo index. We also have an FAQ. Again, I'll talk a little bit more about that later. That's also created by our Q&A bot with curated content around questions and answers. And we'll show how that works in a little bit. We'll take a quick look at the Kendra Query API now, just so we can understand what happens behind the scenes whenever we're looking at our various front-end channels. So I'm opening up an AWS Cloud Shell here. It gives me a command line interface in my AWS account, where I can start typing some of the command line queries. So here's the AWS Kendra. It shows me the different operations that are available. So let's do a list indexes just to see which indexes we have in Kendra. And not surprisingly, we get exactly one index returned by this command line. It tells us the index name is Q&A bot demo 1. That's what we're looking at just a minute ago. It's got an index ID. So let's try running a query now. AWS Kendra query, and we're going to have to give it an index ID, which conveniently I have right here, which I can copy and paste, and I'm going to have to give it query text. This is where I ask the question. So let's try a question. What is Kendra? And we'll see if Kendra actually knows the answer. So the command line interface now is invoking the Kendra API over the internet. It's doing a query API call and retrieving the answers from the Kendra Intelligent Search Service. So you can see here that the answer comes back in the form of this JSON. We're not going to get into this in detail, but this is what's happening behind the scenes whenever we're using either the web channel or the chatbot channels that we're going to talk in a bit. Is essentially the question that the user types in gets sent to the query API, and Kendra returns the answers in the form of a JSON document like this. Okay, so let's look at a more human-friendly way of querying our index. See here there's actually a search console built right into the Kendra console where I can enter my query. Let's say, what is Kendra? Same query that I did a minute ago from the command line. And you can see here now, instead of getting a long JSON object, we're getting to see a nice formatted set of responses on the web page. And here I was asking, what is Kendra? So it comes back here with a suggested answer, and it highlights the entire answer phrase. And Kendra is a highly accurate, easy to use enterprise search. We also have an answer from our FAQ, and we have a set of other documents here that were considered relevant. This is our kind of document ranking set of results. So your user interface, just like this one, can choose which of these types of responses to display, how many of them to display, that sort of thing. So like I mentioned, this one is built right into the Kendra console. Let's take a look at a couple of publicly available ones. So this is our AWS documentation page.
So let's try entering a query. Let's ask it about the Kendra Query API. So it's looking through all of the AWS documentation to try and find the most relevant answers to my question. And you can see here the #1 ranked document is talking about the API search for doing the query. Down the left-hand side here, you can see I can narrow down the choices if I want. These are called facets. Kendra can support queries that limit the number of documents that it goes through based on the value of these facets. These are document attributes that allow you to filter your queries. So this allows me to narrow it down further. Here's another site that uses Kendra. This contains an index with many publicly available documents to do with the COVID-19. You can see here there's some example questions that you can put in, or you can type in your own question. Again, it's doing a Kendra query behind the scenes across a very large corpus of documents to try and find the most relevant answers. And again, like before, you can select which subsets of data you want to search through using the facet capability. If I go back to the Kendra console again, you can see over here on the left there's a little widget that if I click, this one here actually, it shows me how I can get code samples that would allow me to put a search bar like this, a search capability, onto my own website. So you can get code samples here. So we're going to pivot now to the topic of chatbots and Amazon Lex, and we'll show how Lex can integrate with Kendra to provide easy access to a lot of different channels to allow people to query Kendra and get answers to their questions. So Amazon Lex is an AWS service that allows you to build chatbots for multiple use cases, to help with intelligent routing and contact centers, to building enterprise productivity bots. What we're going to talk about today is the one in the middle, informational bots. This is where users have questions and we want to provide a bot that will provide a self-service way to answer those questions. This is especially good for frequently asked questions or questions that can be answered based on documents in your Kendra index. We're going to use a project that makes it really easy for you to get up and running with an FAQ or a Q&A bot on top of Amazon Lex. This is an open source project called the Q&A bot. We use this analogy of a room with many doors for Q&A bots. So on the right hand side we have all the channels that are enabled by Amazon Lex. So that includes Facebook Messenger, Twilio for SMS, we're going to show that today. Slack, we'll show that one today as well. You can integrate this into your Slack channel. You can also put it on your website, and you can integrate it with Amazon Connect to integrate the FAQ bot into your call center. And then with Alexa, you have access to all of the different devices that support Alexa. So that's your Echo series of devices, the dots, the shows. Your Fire TV can actually access Alexa skills as well, and your Kindle devices. So there's a lot of different ways in which you can access the Q&A bot and therefore access Kendra, which is what is powering the Q&A bot behind the scenes. We had a prior tech talk on this topic actually, how to integrate Lex and Kendra to answer questions. So I just wanted to do a plug for that. If you go into YouTube and you search for create a Q&A bot with Amazon Lex and Amazon Kendra to answer questions, you'll find this tech talk that was done by my colleague Andrew Kane. So to get going with the Q&A bot, you'll want to go to this blog post. It's amazon.com/Q&A bot. That's a shortcut that redirects you to the blog post. This is your entry point for all things related to Q&A bot. It gives you an introduction. It explains all the features that the Q&A bot has. It's got a table of contents here where you can jump to different sections. And this is the important part here. This is where you can actually launch the Q&A bot. There's a section here in the blog post that specifically talks about the integration with Kendra and Q&A bot. So you should definitely take a read at that. Kendra integrates in two different contexts. There's the FAQs. So we're going to see in a second when we create frequently asked questions in the content designer, we can synchronize it to Kendra and use Kendra as the engine to then match the user's questions to the answers. But we can also use Kendra as a fallback source. So, this is when if the user asks a question that doesn't match any of the questions in the FAQs, we can also use Kendra in this context to try and find the answer from the unstructured document indexes. And we'll do that with the indexes that we set up earlier. So this is a great way of making your question and answer bot much smarter very quickly with minimal amount of training, as you basically give it the content of documents that you may already have, PDFs, Word documents. In fact, you can scrape web pages. This is a new feature that got added to the Q&A bot recently. There's a web page indexer. So you basically give it URLs of web pages that have information that you might want to use to answer questions. It will automatically pull back the content from those web pages and insert them into your Kendra index for you, and then Kendra will be able to answer questions from the content of those web pages. So once you launch the Content Designer, so I mentioned you get an email earlier once you install, and it's got a link to the Content Designer. You'll have to set up a password the first time, but once you come in, this is what Content Designer looks like. Here I've already added some FAQs. The first time you launch it, this will be blank. You won't have any FAQs. These are example ones that we had added earlier. And if you go through the blog post that I just referred you to, it will show you how to create many of these kind of example FAQs that illustrate the various features of the Q&A bot. But let's go ahead and do a real quick demo just to show you how easy it is. There's a question that I want to answer that's not in my list of FAQs right now. So I'm going to go ahead and add it. We'll call this 0.demo. All right, the question will be, what is the population of France? Let me just copy and paste it so I don't fat finger that. Okay, and let's put in an answer, about 67 million. And we'll just click create. Okay, so now I've added the question. So let's see if the bot knows how to answer that question right away. Let's go to the Q&A bot client. And we'll type, what is the population of France? And you can see that it comes back with 67 million. So that was how to really quickly train Q&A bot to answer a new type of question. These questions that we add to Q&A bot can be synchronized to Kendra from the menu here, Sync Kendra FAQ. And that actually is what populates the FAQs in our index. So see, we have this FAQ called Q&A Facts in Kendra. That was populated by our content designer here. And this allows us, whenever the user then comes in through our web chat application and asks a question, this question actually gets relayed to Kendra. Kendra will check its FAQs and come back with the answer that we had provided through the content designer. So there are other interesting things you can do with these FAQs from within Content Designer here. So let's open up the edit again. We'll go to the advanced section this time. Take a look at some of the things we can do. So you can add markdown versions of the answer. This allows you to do rich text formatting for display on the web user interface and on Slack channels. You can put in an SSML answer. SSML stands for Synthetic Speech Markup Language, and it's a way of controlling, whenever you're using a voice interface, you can control how the voice is synthesized, control the emphasis, different words, that sort of thing. When you're using Alexa, you can put in reprompts if the user doesn't respond in a timely fashion. You can add cards with images. You can add buttons to suggest what the user might want to do next after they get the answer to a question. This Lambda hook is a powerful feature as well. This allows you to build dynamic answers into the Q&A bot. There's additional advanced information that's explained in the blog, so I'm not going to go into all of that now. But let me just quickly show you the markdown in action. Here I've just pasted in simple markdown syntax that has France as a header level using a little pound symbol. We're going to make the 67 million in bold with the double asterisks there. So let's just update the item. We'll go back into our UI and we'll do what is the population of France. And this time you can see the answer comes back in rich text with France in big bold letters and the 67 million highlighted. We've built in the ability here for the user to provide feedback if they like the answer to the question, or if they don't like the answer, they can click a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So here we'll click a thumbs up to say that, yep, this was a good answer. And the bot acknowledges that it got the feedback. This actually integrates back into Kendra so that we can positively reinforce or negatively reinforce answers that come from Kendra. So while I'm here, let me show you a couple of the other features that I mentioned when we were in the designer. So what is the Echo Show? This is one of the pre-built demo questions that I have already installed in the designer. So you can see here we're able to attach an image to the answer to the question, as well as some buttons. So the buttons are actually a nice way of providing kind of guide rails or guided pathways to the user. So it gives me suggestions for what I might want to ask about next. So let's say I want to ask about the Fire TV. It automatically sends a question, what is Amazon Fire TV, when I click that button. And here you can see there's an answer that uses Markdown to make this word in bold. It's also using Markdown to embed a YouTube video, and you can actually play this video live right from within the web UI. So let's switch back to Designer here. Earlier I was talking about how Q&A Bot allowed you to scrape web pages. Here's how you do that. There's a Kendra web page indexing wizard where you can start the indexing here, and it shows you where it has crawled each web page before and how many documents got added to the Kendra index. This is all configured under settings. If we scroll down here, you can see here is the Kendra indexer URL. So this is where I've told it which web pages I want to pull the HTML from and put into the Kendra index. So I've done that in advance, and that's why when we go to data sources here, you can see the Q&A bot Kendra crawler. So Kendra should be able to answer questions based on the content of any of these FAQ pages. In fact, our demo earlier, when we were using the CLI and the search page, was asking a question about Amazon Kendra, which came from the Kendra FAQ page that was crawled by the Q&A bot here. So we should be able to ask the same question that we asked earlier when we were doing the CLI test and the search bar test within Kendra. What is Amazon Kendra? Okay, so this question does not match any of the FAQs that we had in Content Designer, but it does match the web page that we had crawled from the Amazon Kendra FAQ web page. So at this point, it tries to look within the Kendra FAQ. It says, nope, no answer from our curated content. So the information that was put into the Kendra FAQ by Content Designer does not have an answer for this question. So then it expands its search to the other parts of the index. So let me just go back so you know what I'm talking about. So this is the FAQ that was created by Q&A bot. There's no answer to my question there, so it expands its search now to the other data sources, and this time it finds the answer in the web page that we had crawled, which was the Kendra Frequently Asked Questions web page. And you can see here it came back with two answers. It came back with this one that's bolded, and then there was a second answer. And I can actually control from within Content Designer how many answers I want to see back. So if I go down here, let's see, maximum document count is set to 2. If I just want to see one answer back, it's a chatbot, maybe I don't want to make it look like a search page with too many possible alternatives, I can just set that to 1, and it's just going to show me the document with the highest confidence rating. So let's just try that again. Okay, and this time it just comes back with one answer, which it considers the best answer. Okay, so let's try a different question. Let's do what AWS regions is Kendra in? Okay, and this time you'll notice that it says this is an Amazon Kendra suggested answer. So now Kendra is actually very confident that it knows the answer. And this looks less like a search result and more like a direct answer to the question. We can also interact with Kendra using voice via the chatbot. We're going to see that again whenever we look at the Alexa and Contact Center channels, but let's try it quickly here on the web UI. Click the little microphone button here. In which AWS regions is Kendra available?
Northern Virginia, Oregon, Asia Pacific, Sydney, and Ireland.
So let's say I'm not a native English speaker. Let's pretend that I'm fluent in French but not so good on English, and I want to ask the question in French. So here I'm going to type in the equivalent of what is Amazon Kendra, but in French. So you can see here that my question was able to return an answer from the same Kendra index. Now I should point out that the Q&A bot does not have any FAQs in French. The Kendra index does not have any documents in French. Everything is in English in the behind the scenes. But the Q&A bot detected that the incoming language I was using was French. I have enabled the multilingual mode of Q&A bot. So when that mode is enabled, it can detect the incoming language automatically translated using our Amazon Translate service into the English equivalent. That English equivalent is then used to look up the index, retrieve the answer. The answer is then automatically converted back into the user's local language, in this case French. And this would actually work for any of the languages that are supported by Amazon Translate. So we've been showing you the features of how Q&A Bot interacts with Kendra using our full screen web UI that's built into Q&A Bot. But what if you want to put the chatbot onto your own website? Well, we have a companion open source project for doing that. It's at amazon.com/chatbotui. This takes you to the blog post that explains all about this UI. It's essentially a hosted version of the user interface that will put a widget on your web page that you can use to interact with the bot. The blog post explains all the different features of the web UI, and it gives you this nice convenient launch stack button that will allow you to install it in your own account. Once the stack is installed, the outputs of the CloudFormation is going to show you this thing called the snippet URL. Again, the blog post explains how to do all of this, but I just wanted to give you the summary version. So there's a little snippet here of HTML that you put into your own web page, and that will allow you to display a bot. Here's an example of one that I put into a SharePoint page. The way we added this is if I go to the SharePoint page editor, do edit page, and go to added a web part. This is the script for the web part. If I do edit source, let me make that smaller. You can see here is a little HTML snippet that I had taken from my Lex Web UI project. So this is really easy. You install it, you get the little snippet, you add the snippet to your web page. In this case, it's a SharePoint page. It doesn't have to be, it can be any sort of HTML page. And once you reload the page, you're going to get the web UI on your page. You have the ability to add authentication to the web UI as well. Here I don't have it enabled, but you can enable a login here, and it can bring up a login page. It is possible to integrate the login with single sign-on on your website. So if you already have an identity provider on your website, it is possible to federate that with our Amazon Cognito service that's being used by the Lex Web UI, so that the user will automatically be authenticated. And that's very useful if you want to personalize the chatbot. So Q&A Bot can actually understand an identity token, a JWT token, that the bot would pass through to the back end, and it can extract information like the person's name, their email address, various other pieces of information that might be in their user profile, and use that to personalize answers. That JWT token can also be passed through to Kendra and used as part of Kendra's access control list implementation. So this is like an advanced feature of Kendra where you can determine which documents in a Kendra index are allowed to be seen by which users. Let's just try some of the same questions that we've been working with before. So what is Amazon Kendra? And I can also say, in what AWS regions is Kendra available? And I should get the same suggested answer. And all the same features will work here. I can also do voice interaction from here. The multiple languages should also work. Here's the same question in French. And the answer comes back in French. So all the same features work here. It's just a very convenient way of putting the chatbot onto an existing website that you might have, whether it's WordPress, SharePoint, or your own website. Here are a couple of examples of customers that have done exactly this. Here's an example from the State of Rhode Island, their Department of Labour and Training, who've used the Lex Web UI, again backed by a Q&A bot that is hooked up to a Kendra index behind the scenes. They've got multiple languages enabled for their users. Let's just try a question on here. What is an apprenticeship? And you can see here it came back with an answer from Kendra. Here's the same question in Spanish on their site. Hopefully the answer will come back in Spanish, and it does. You have full control over the stylistic elements of the web UI. There's a cascading style sheet that's shipped with it that you can customize. So you can change the colors, you can change the fonts, you can change the backgrounds. Here's another example of a customer that has deployed the same thing, Q&A bot with Kendra Index with the Lex web UI on their website. But you can see the web UI looks very different here. They've got a different color scheme. They've got a little avatar here. So they've really made it blend in with their site. The web UI is a responsive web app, which means it works fine on mobile form factors as well. So I can't actually show you my cell phone. You could try it yourself if you wanted to on this Rhode Island site, or I can set Chrome to the mobile form factor here and see what it looks like. So you can see this is what it would look like on a mobile display. The bot interface works perfectly fine on a mobile. With touch entry for buttons, you can still maximize, minimize, you can click the buttons and interact with it on your mobile device. So the next channel we're going to talk about is text messaging. How do we send a question to Kendra via text on our phone? Well, again, Amazon Lex makes that quite easy for us. We can use a Q&A bot and take advantage of Lex's integration with Twilio programmable SMS. There are actually a couple of different ways of doing this, but the Twilio is one of the easiest ones. It's a built-in integration with Amazon Lex. And since Q&A bot actually is an Amazon Lex bot, we can take advantage of this integration to be able to send text messages to your Q&A bot, which will in turn relay those messages to Kendra to get the answers to the questions that we ask. So I've already set up my phone number in my contacts here, so it's just called Q&A bot. And let's try one of the questions that we've been asking before. What is Amazon Kendra? So now we're sending a text message through the Twilio SMS service. Twilio is sending it on to Lex. Lex is using Q&A bot to send that message to Kendra, where Kendra is searching the index, coming back with the answer, and it's going to make its way back here as a reply text message. So a lot of companies use Slack these days for messaging. It's a very popular messaging application, and we can set it up so that our bot is accessible as an application in Slack. We set it up very similar to the way we did with Twilio SMS actually. So let me just show you quickly. In the documentation page, we can click Integrating with Slack. This is the Amazon Lex documentation. And that'll guide you through all the instructions just like it did with Twilio. Here I have my Slack client opened up. I'm talking to the Q&A bot that I set up in advance through the Slack console. And I can ask the questions that are very familiar to us now. What is Amazon Kendra? Okay, so Slack is sending the message to Lex. Lex sends it to Q&A bot, to Kendra. Kendra searches its index and we get the same answer. In which AWS regions is Kendra? And we get our answer back again. So as we mentioned earlier, the Q&A bot also can be deployed as an Alexa skill. And this means that using this capability, we can extend Kendra's intelligent search engine to every device that supports Amazon Alexa. So Echo Shows, Echo Dots, Fire TV devices, Kindle tablets, automotive devices now that support Alexa. They could all deploy a skill that you would create using the Q&A bot, which in turn exposes Kendra's search through those skills. So let me show you quickly how we set that up. Within the Q&A bot designer, there's a wizard here for Alexa. It guides you through the setup, shows you how to go to the Amazon Developer Console. You just walk through the steps by steps. It tells you what to do within the console to create a new skill. It gives you the information that you need to paste from the Q&A bot designer into the skill developer in order to create the Alexa skill. So it'll give you all the information you need. There's a Lambda function, there's a schema that needs to be loaded in there, and it tells you how to test it. Let's try it on a real Echo Dot. I have one in front of me here. I won't be able to show it to you, but hopefully you can hear the audio. Alexa, open Kendra Q&A.
Hello, please ask a question.
In what AWS regions is Kendra available?
Northern Virginia, Oregon, Asia Pacific, Sydney, and Ireland.
So hopefully you're able to hear that. That was my Echo Dot responding. So adding an informational bot to your contact center is a really powerful way of reducing your customers' hold times and giving them accurate information quickly and reliably. Amazon Lex integrates beautifully with the Amazon Connect, which is our cloud-based contact center offering from AWS. You can put the bot into your contact center to help with intelligent call routing, to help with task automation, and of course informational bots answering frequently asked questions from your customers, which is often a large percentage of the calls that your contact center is going to get. People just have questions that they want to get the answers for, and if we can automate those through the use of an informational bot, it really reduces the hold times, reduces your cost of operation, and results in more satisfied customers because they're not waiting on hold to speak to a person to get their question answered. So earlier I showed you the chatbot on Oklahoma State University, Oklahoma City, their website. They've actually also integrated the Q&A bot with Kendra into their Amazon Connect powered contact center. There's a blog post here that I'm displaying on the screen that tells you all about it. I thoroughly recommend you search for the blog post, Building an Omnichannel Q&A Chatbot with Amazon Connect, Lex and Kendra. It'll tell you about the value that they got from it. So how do you do that? We make it quite easy within the Q&A bot content designer. I've just opened up the content designer. We can go to the menu here, and we've got a wizard here for Connect. And this actually gets you up and running really quickly. If you don't already have Connect set up, it talks you through how to set up your first Connect instance, how to claim a phone number from Connect. It'll talk you through all the different steps, how to get into the contact flow area of Connect. And we actually create a contact flow for you to get started. So you can download a contact flow here just by clicking this button. It creates a file on your local computer, which you can then import into the Amazon Connect console. And this is what it looks like. This is a simple contact flow just to serve as an illustration of how to create a bot-enabled call center. For production use, you'll want to make it more sophisticated. You'll add agent queues and the ability to transfer from the bot to a human agent if the bot can't answer the questions. There's a lot of sophistication you can add, but this is a really quick and easy way to get started and to kick the tires and experiment. So let's give it a go. I'm going to open up my SoftPhone application here, and we'll call the number for my contact center.
Hello. Welcome to Q&A bot. Ask me a question.
Which regions is Kendra available in?
Northern Virginia, Oregon, Asia Pacific, Sydney, and Ireland. Ask another question or say return to main menu.
What is the population of France?
About 67 million. Ask another question or say return to main menu.
So I got the answers I want, so I just went ahead and hung up the phone. The first question I asked was an example of what we call Kendra fallback. Remember, the answer to that question was not in the content designer's list of curated questions. Nowhere in here do I answer the question about which regions Kendra is available in. So Kendra actually was able to find an answer for that by crawling searching its index of web pages that we had crawled and documents that we had put into the index, and it found the answer in the web page that we had crawled from the Kendra Frequently Asked Questions website. The second question, however, was an item that we had explicitly added into the content designer. What is the population of France? And here, Kendra is used to find the right answer, but the answer is explicitly curated in this item. So we have a lot of tight control over what that answer is in the content designer. So Q&A bot provides a dashboard that you can use to monitor the questions that people are asking your bot. So you launch a Kibana dashboard from here. I've already opened it up, and it gives you an overview. You can choose the time range you want to look at, but it gives you an overview of the number of questions that are getting asked at different times of the day. It does sentiment detection on them. You can see if people are saying happy things or angry things to your bot. It shows you here where your questions are coming in from. So you can see this is the Lex web UI. Here are things coming in through Amazon Connect. And the different channels that we're talking about. There's the Slack channel that's coming in. This is a Twilio SMS. So you can see the different distribution of where your traffic's coming from if you have a multi-channel bot in place. And then these little word clouds here give you a sense of what people are asking your bot. These are the logged utterances. This is the sum total of things that people are saying. Over here are the questions that people are asking that are not in the curated list of questions in the designer. So some of these questions may be answered by Kendra fallback. So Kendra may be able to find the answers, but you still want to know which ones are being answered from your curated list of questions versus which ones are being answered by Kendra from the index. You might find that if somebody's asking a question often enough, you might want to create a curated version of that question that gives you a little bit more control over the answer, the formatting of the answer, for example, or if you want to control the translations rather than relying on machine translation. You can do all of that within the Q&A bot designer, maybe attach images and buttons, etc. So you have more control. So you want to monitor here and see if the very popular questions, frequently asked questions, are not in the list of questions in Q&A bot, and you might want to add them. And then you remember earlier I showed you how users can provide positive or negative feedback. So again, this shows you a little word cloud of the questions that they liked the answers to, give positive feedback, or didn't like the answers to.
Great, that was awesome. Thank you so much, Bob. Now, let's share some examples of how these are being brought to life in real-world scenarios, starting with modernizing the website search experience with intelligent search. The Wall Street Journal leveraged Amazon Kendra's intelligent search capabilities in Q4 of last year in their Talk 2020 tool that was live on their website during the 2020 presidential election. It gave voters and visitors to the site a more natural way to ask plain language questions about each of the presidential candidates and their positions on specific policies like the economy or climate change. Kendra's natural language processing capabilities surfaced relevant information quickly without requiring the user to dig through a number of links, enabling them to be more informed prior to election day. Another example of modernizing the search experience was from AWS customer bswift, who added Kendra's capabilities to their benefits administration portal. We've all been there, trying to make decisions about our health benefits and elections prior to the deadline or during the course of a year. By incorporating intelligent search capabilities and natural language processing into the portal, bswift was able to help customers find information that mattered to them quickly and minimize the need for customers to reach out for more help on an issue. So when talking about creating smarter conversational chatbots, in this architecture, we can see an example. In this case, we have a customer interacting with Amazon Lex. Amazon Lex is a service for building conversational interfaces into any application using voice and text. Amazon Lex interfaces with Amazon Kendra, which is our intelligent search service powered by machine learning. Amazon Kendra provides customers direct access to the information they need, and they can consume it through these conversational interfaces that you're building with Amazon Lex. We also talked about enhancing Q&A bots in the demo. Let's see some examples about this in the real world. The Department of Labor and Training of Rhode Island was able to act fast when COVID turned normal life upside down. As inbound queries spiked and the state residents looked for answers related to their unemployment benefits, the team was able to evolve their existing customer communication system to a cloud-based system and machine learning-powered chatbot that incorporated intelligent search. It enabled over 85,000 citizens to manage their unemployment claims the very first day it launched, eliminating customer frustration and enhanced the overall experiences. Similarly, Oklahoma State University in Oklahoma City was able to deploy chatbot experience to their website to help students get answers to critical questions they had about the student experience. Not only did this improve efficiency for the university staff, it actually provided much more visibility into student sentiment and the issues they cared about, which enabled the university to think about future enhancements, for example, creating personalized content and responses related to individual classes and schedules. Last but not least is the ability to improve contact center efficiency with intelligent search. In this flow, we can see that by using Amazon Kendra, as well as other AI services, customers can, for example, convert call center interactions into text, understand customers with sentiment and key phrase analytics, and finally use intelligent search to find and deliver the right information. Let's look at an example. Within the world of healthcare, vast amounts of patient and drug information can make it overwhelming to locate accurate information quickly. Magellan RX was able to deploy intelligent search inside their call center to give agents a real-time mechanism to locate critical patient information as agents interacted via live phone calls. This helped them to boost efficiency in the form of average call time reduction on a massive scale, But additionally, one of the indirect benefits of this for this AWS customer was the reduction in new agent training times and the boost in agent retention rates, driven by being able to empower and enable call center agents to better serve customers. To learn more about each of these use cases, you can follow the links listed below. They feature in-depth blogs and breakout sessions from Reinvent 2020, where customers walk through reference architecture and solution design challenges they faced and were able to resolve. As always, if you'd like to jump in and start building your own intelligent search applications, there are a few different ways you can get started. Once again, thank you for tuning into our Tech Talk today. We hope it was valuable for you and gave you ideas about how you can enhance omnichannel customer experiences using intelligent search in your business. Now, let's get to our Q&A session.